Alien vet refused treatment. The human vet just whispered. Easy buddy. Part 1. The impossible patient. Alarms screaming through Galactic Veterinary Station Zenith had been blaring for 20 minutes straight. Dr. Kalara's antennae twitched with frustration as she reviewed the medical scans one more time, hoping the data would somehow change. It did not. The creature thrashing in Containment Bay 7 was dying, and there was absolutely nothing she could do about it. Station Zenith represented the pinnacle of veterinary medicine across 3 star systems. Its crystalline spires housed technology from 100 worlds, and its staff included the finest animal care specialists the galaxy had to offer. Kalara herself had studied for 40 years, her Vrin brain capable of processing medical information faster than most species could read. She had saved thousands of creatures that others deemed hopeless, but this Korthax was different. The massive predator slammed against the reinforced containment field, and the entire bay shuddered. Blood matted its dark fur, and its 6 eyes burned with what Kalara recognized as pain-induced rage. The creature stood nearly 3 meters tall even in its weakened state, with claws that could tear through durasteel and jaws powerful enough to crush bone. Sedation remains ineffective, announced her assistant, a young Quellon named Pix who kept a safe distance from the containment field. Respiratory distress is increasing. Internal hemorrhaging detected in multiple organ systems. Kalara's mandibles clicked in a pattern that signaled deep concern. The Korthax had arrived 6 hours ago on a cargo transport. According to the manifest, it had saved 3 crew members from a reactor breach, suffering terrible injuries in the process. The crew called it a hero. Station protocol called it a liability. Have you contacted the owner? Kalara asked. Captain Moros is in the observation deck. He refuses to leave. Kalara glanced at the viewport where a massive Thraken stood watching, his rocky features carved with worry. The captain had raised this Korthax from a pup, an unusual bond between 2 species that rarely interacted. Now he was about to watch his companion die because the creature was too dangerous to treat. Inform the captain of our decision, Kalara said quietly. Prepare the humane termination sequence. Wait. A new voice cut through the medical bay's tension. Everyone turned to look at the speaker. Dr. Sarah Chen stood near the entrance, arms folded, studying the thrashing Korthax with an expression Kalara could not quite interpret. The human had arrived at Station Zenith only 5 days ago, transferred from some remote wilderness rehabilitation center on Earth. Her file indicated extensive experience with dangerous predators, but Earth animals were simple compared to the galaxy's diverse and often deadly fauna. You have an objection, Dr. Chen? Kalara asked, keeping her tone neutral. Sarah stepped closer to the containment field, ignoring the gasps from other staff members. She moved with a calm confidence that seemed out of place given the circumstances. Yeah, I do. That animal isn't attacking. He's protecting himself. The distinction is irrelevant, Kalara replied. He is too dangerous to approach safely. Look at his body language. Sarah pointed at the Korthax without taking her eyes off the creature. Really look at him. Kalara activated her optical enhancers, focusing on the details. The Korthax's ears lay flat against his skull. His breathing came in rapid, shallow pants. His massive body trembled between attacks on the containment field. Every muscle remained tensed, coiled for defense rather than offense. He is afraid, Kalara said aloud, surprised by her own observation. Terrified, Sarah confirmed, and in massive pain. See how he favors his left side? That's where the worst injuries are. Every movement hurts, so he's lashing out at anything that comes near. It's not aggression. It's a fear response, Kalara considered this. The human's observation aligned with the medical data, yet it changed nothing about their fundamental problem. Your analysis may be correct, but standard sedatives do not affect Korthax metabolism. We cannot approach him safely. Then let me try without sedatives. The medical bay fell silent except for the Korthax's labored breathing and the persistent alarm. Several staff members stared at Sarah as if she had suggested breathing vacuum. That is suicide, Kalara stated flatly. Maybe. Sarah walked toward the control panel for the containment field. Or maybe I know something you don't. Human arrogance will get you killed. Human experience might save his life. Sarah looked directly at Kalara, and in those eyes the Vrin doctor saw something she rarely encountered. Absolute conviction. I've worked with aggressive animals my entire career. Wolves, bears, big cats, creatures that could tear me apart. But they didn't because I learned their language. Korthax do not have language. Every animal has language. Sarah interrupted gently. You just have to know how to listen. Kalara's analytical mind raced through scenarios and probabilities. The human's methods seemed illogical, inefficient, and unnecessarily dangerous, but this Korthax was going to die anyway. What harm could come from allowing Sarah to try? If you are injured, it will not be the station's responsibility, Kalara warned. Understood. Are you insane? Captain Moros's voice boomed through the intercom from the observation deck. That creature will kill you. Sarah glanced up at the viewport where the captain pressed against the glass. He might, but he won't if I do this right. Trust me, Captain. I've whispered down bigger demons than this. Kalara made a gesture to Pix, who hesitated before slowly lowering the front section of the containment field. The energy barrier shimmered and disappeared. Nothing stood between Sarah and the Korthax now, except 3 meters of blood-stained floor and a very bad decision. Sarah took a slow breath and crouched down, making herself smaller and less threatening. She turned her body at an angle, avoiding direct confrontation. Then she did something that made every alien in the medical bay question whether humans possessed any survival instincts at all. She stepped into the containment area. The Korthax's head snapped toward her with frightening speed. Its lips curled back, revealing teeth the size of daggers. A low growl rumbled from deep in its chest, a sound that vibrated through the floor and into everyone's bones. Every muscle in the creature's massive body tensed, coiled to spring. Sarah stopped moving. She kept her posture low and relaxed, non-threatening, despite standing in striking distance of certain death. She did not look directly at the Korthax's 6 eyes. Instead, she gazed at a point just past the creature's shoulder, a gesture that communicated awareness without challenge. Then she spoke, her voice so quiet that Kalara had to enhance her audio receptors to hear it. Easy, buddy. Easy now. The Korthax stopped growling. The medical bay fell absolutely silent. Even the persistent alarms seemed to quiet in that moment. Every eye in the room focused on the human and the predator, separated by less than 2 meters of bloody floor and an ocean of mutual fear. Sarah took another small step forward. Her movements were glacially slow, deliberate, telegraphed well in advance. Nobody here wants to hurt you. I know you're scared. I know everything hurts. But I can help. I promise. The Korthax's ears, previously flat against his skull, twitched forward. His breathing slowed slightly, matching the rhythm of Sarah's calm voice. His eyes, still wide with fear and pain, locked onto her face with an intensity that would have frozen most beings in terror. That's it, Sarah murmured, taking one more careful step. Good boy. You're doing so good. She extended her hand, palm down, fingers loose and relaxed. The universal gesture of peace among Earth's predators translated remarkably well across the stars. The Korthax sniffed the air, taking in Sarah's scent, analyzing this strange creature that smelled of confidence and something else, something the predator recognized on an instinctual level. Calm. This human radiated calm. Sarah moved closer still, now within striking distance. One swipe of those claws would disembowel her. One bite would end her life in seconds. But she kept her movements slow, her voice steady, her entire presence radiating a peace that seemed to flow outward and touch the wounded creature before her. I know you saved those people, Sarah said softly. Captain Moros told me all about it. You're a good boy, aren't you? A brave boy. Got hurt protecting them. The Korthax's tail, which had been lashing violently just minutes ago, settled to the floor, his breathing synchronized with Sarah's rhythm, deep and even. When Sarah finally closed the distance and placed her hand gently on the creature's massive head, no one in the medical bay dared to breathe. There we go, Sarah whispered. I've got you now. Let's get you fixed up. The Korthax leaned into her touch, and a sound emerged from his throat that Kalara had never heard in all her studies of the species. It was soft, almost a purr, the sound of a frightened creature finally finding safety. Dr. Kalara watched in stunned silence as Sarah began her examination, hands moving confidently over the Korthax's body, while maintaining constant physical contact and soft verbal reassurance. The creature, which moments ago had been thrashing hard enough to damage reinforced containment fields, now lay still under the human's touch, trusting this strange being who spoke in gentle tones and touched with careful hands. Perhaps, Kalara thought, her mandibles clicking in a pattern that signified wonder. There was something to human methods after all, something that transcended logic and protocol and pure medical science, something that her people had forgotten in their pursuit of efficiency and perfection. Sometimes healing required more than medicine. Sometimes it required simply caring enough to whisper, "Easy, buddy," and mean it with every fiber of your being. Breaking protocol. Building bridges 3 days had passed since Sarah Chen had walked into a containment field that should have been her tomb, and emerged with a patient instead of a corpse. The Korthax, whom Captain Moros called Striker, now rested peacefully in Recovery Bay 7. Sarah had not left his side except for brief necessities. Sleeping on a medical cot she had dragged into the bay against all station regulations. Dr. Kalara stood in the observation area, reviewing data on her holographic display while watching the human work. Sarah sat cross-legged beside Striker's massive form, one hand resting on his side, monitoring each breath. Her eyes tracked every movement, every shift in the creature's posture. She was reading a language Kalara had never learned to speak. "Your patient is stable," Kalara announced through the intercom. "There is no logical reason for you to remain in the recovery bay." Sarah glanced up at the observation window. "He gets stressed when I leave. Last time I went to get food, his heart rate jumped 40 beats per minute. That indicates an attachment has formed. Such bonds are temporary and counterproductive to proper care." "Or maybe," Sarah replied, gently scratching behind Striker's ear, "he knows who helped him when everyone else had given up." The Korthax's tail thumped against the floor in a rhythm that seemed almost content. Kalara's analytical mind struggled with what she was witnessing. According to every behavioral model in the Vrin medical database, Korthax were solitary apex predators with no capacity for bonding outside their own species. Yet here was one responding to human touch like a domesticated companion animal. "I have been studying Earth's history with predatory species," Kalara said, her mandibles clicking thoughtfully. "Your relationship with canines is particularly fascinating. You took wolves and made them into something new," Sarah smiled. "We didn't make them into anything. They chose to stay with us because we offered something they needed. Safety, food, companionship. We got the same things back. Both species benefited. Most species in the galaxy have never attempted such bonds. We domesticated food animals, creatures that posed no threat. The concept of befriending an apex predator is foreign to us." "That's because you think of it as dominance," Sarah said. "It's not. It's partnership. Mutual respect. Wolves didn't become dogs because we forced them. They chose us and we chose them back." Before Kalara could respond, emergency alarms blared throughout the station. Her datapad lit up with urgent notifications. She clicked her mandibles rapidly, a sign of sudden stress. "Incoming diplomatic vessel. Critical patient aboard. Species identified as Silthan." Sarah stood quickly, giving Striker one last reassuring pat. "What's a Silthan?" "Crystalline beings from a high-pressure world. They are extremely difficult to treat due to radical biological differences." Kalara was already moving toward the main docking bay. "They are also incredibly rare. This will be only the second Silthan I have encountered in 40 years. What happened to the first one?" Kalara's antennae drooped slightly. "It died. We could not determine the cause." The docking bay doors opened with a hiss of pressurized air. A diplomatic transport settled onto the landing platform, its hull bearing the insignia of the Silthan Concordat. The cargo ramp lowered, and a containment unit twice the size of a standard medical pod rolled down the ramp, pushed by automated systems. Inside the transparent containment unit lay a being unlike anything Sarah had ever seen. The Silthan looked like a living sculpture of fractured crystal and flowing light. Its body stood roughly humanoid in shape, but composed entirely of translucent material that shifted through colors Sarah could barely name. Cracks spiderwebbed across its surface, and the light that normally would have flowed within seemed dim, flickering. Behind the containment unit walked a tall Silthan in formal diplomatic robes. Unlike the patient, this one's crystalline structure glowed with vibrant health, colors shifting in patterns that Sarah suspected carried meaning. "I am Ambassador Torvin," the healthy Silthan announced, his voice like wind chimes in a storm. "This is Resonance, my companion. 5 different facilities have refused treatment. I was told Station Zenith was my last hope." Kalara approached the containment unit, already scanning with her medical equipment. "Why did the other facilities refuse?" They said resonance's biology is incompatible with their methods. They said the molecular structure of Sylthan physiology does not respond to standard treatments. They said many things, all of which amounted to the same conclusion. Torvin's colors shifted to darker hues. They said to let resonance die with dignity, rather than suffer through futile attempts at healing. Sarah moved closer to the containment unit, studying the sick Sylthan with the same intense focus she had given Stryker. The creature's surface showed extensive fracturing, but something about the pattern seemed wrong. These were not injury-related cracks. They looked more like erosion, like something essential had been slowly worn away. "How long has resonance been sick?" Sarah asked. 12 planetary cycles. The deterioration began slowly, then accelerated. What changed 12 cycles ago? Ambassador Torvin's colors flickered with something that might have been confusion. "I do not understand the relevance of that question." "Humor me," Sarah said gently. "What was different in Resonance's life 12 cycles ago? We left the Sylthan homeworld to establish a new embassy. Resonance chose to accompany me, to experience other worlds and species." Sarah nodded slowly, pieces of a puzzle falling into place in her mind. "So Resonance left behind your entire species to live among aliens?" "Yes, it was a great honor." "Dr. Kalara," Sarah said quietly, "can Sylthan communicate with each other?" "Yes, they use harmonic resonance. Their crystalline structures vibrate at specific frequencies to convey information and emotion." "And how many other Sylthan are at this embassy?" Ambassador Torvin's colors shifted to a deep blue that Sarah instinctively recognized as sadness. "There are no others. I am the sole representative and Resonance was my companion." "There's your answer," Sarah said, turning to Kalara. "Resonance isn't dying from a disease. Resonance is dying from loneliness." The medical bay fell silent except for the gentle hum of life support systems. Kalara's antennae twitched rapidly as her mind processed this theory. "That is speculation," Kalara said carefully. "We have no evidence that emotional isolation can cause physical deterioration in Sylthan." "Look at the fracture patterns," Sarah insisted. "They're not random. They start deep in the core and work outward, like the structure is collapsing from the inside. And you said the first Sylthan you treated died from unknown causes. Want to bet that one was also isolated from its species?" Ambassador Torvin's colors cycled through rapid changes, a display that suggested intense emotional turmoil. "Sylthan are individuals. We do not require constant contact with our own kind. We are capable of existing independently." "Capable doesn't mean healthy," Sarah replied gently. "Humans are social creatures. We can survive alone, but we don't thrive alone. Maybe Sylthan are the same way. Maybe that communication through resonance isn't just about exchanging information. Maybe it's about maintaining your physical structure." Kalara reviewed her medical scans, mandibles clicking in a rapid pattern that indicated deep thought. "If your theory is correct, Dr. Chen, then standard medical intervention will be ineffective. We cannot cure loneliness with medicine." "No," Sarah agreed, "but we can cure it with connection." "Ambassador Torvin, how do Sylthan communicate through resonance?" "Our crystalline structures vibrate at specific frequencies. The vibrations propagate through matter and are received by other Sylthan. It is how we speak, how we share thoughts and emotions." "Can you create those vibrations intentionally? Can you communicate with resonance?" Torvin's colors shifted to something darker. "I can, but I have been. I speak with resonance daily. It has not helped." "Because talking isn't enough," Sarah said. "This isn't about exchanging words. It's about feeling connected, about knowing you're not alone." She turned to Kalara. "Do we have any equipment that can generate specific sound frequencies?" "Yes, and can we measure the exact frequencies Ambassador Torvin uses to communicate?" Kalara's eyes widened with understanding. "You want to amplify the resonance, create an artificial simulation of being surrounded by other Sylthan." "Exactly. And I want to teach the ambassador how to maintain that resonance, how to make resonance feel less alone." For a long moment, Ambassador Torvin stood perfectly still, his colors frozen in a pattern Sarah could not read. Then slowly they began to shift toward warmer hues. "I did not know," Torvin said quietly. "I thought I was honoring resonance by bringing companionship to a foreign world. I did not realize I was bringing isolation." "You didn't know because no one taught you," Sarah said kindly, "just like no one taught the other facilities how to see past biology to the emotional needs underneath. But we can learn. We can do better." Over the next 6 hours, Sarah and Kalara worked together to create a resonance chamber around Resonance's containment unit. They used harmonic generators typically employed for crystalline structure analysis and calibrated them to match Ambassador Torvin's communication frequencies. Then Sarah did something that defied every protocol in the Vryn medical handbook. She taught Torvin how to be present, not as a diplomat or a caretaker, but as a friend. "It's not about the words you say," Sarah explained, demonstrating with her own body language. "It's about showing up consistently. It's about physical presence. It's about letting Resonance know that no matter what, you're here." Ambassador Torvin entered the containment unit, something he had been advised against by previous medical facilities. He placed his crystalline hands on Resonance's fractured surface and began to resonate. The sound was beautiful, like singing crystal bowls multiplied 1,000 times. The harmonic generators amplified and echoed the frequencies, creating the impression of a whole community of Sylthans surrounding them. Resonance's dim internal light flickered, then grew slightly brighter. "It is working," Kalara whispered, watching her medical scans with amazement. "The molecular structure is beginning to stabilize. The fractures are not spreading." Sarah smiled, watching through the observation window as Ambassador Torvin held his companion and sang in frequencies humans could barely hear. "Because now Resonance knows. You're not alone anymore." Over the following days, Resonance's condition improved dramatically. The fractures began to heal. The internal light grew brighter and the Sylthans started to move again with something like hope. Ambassador Torvin spent hours each day in the resonance chamber, no longer working through diplomatic channels but simply being present, singing the songs of his people so his companion would know the sound of home. Word spread through Station Zenith and beyond. The human veterinarian had done it again, saving a creature everyone else had declared untreatable. But more importantly, she had taught an entire species something they had forgotten: that sometimes the most advanced medicine in the galaxy could not heal what a simple act of companionship could. Dr. Kalara filed her reports with growing fascination. Dr. Chen's methods defied logic, broke protocols, and produced results that should have been impossible. The Vryn doctor's analytical mind struggled to quantify what she was witnessing, but she could not deny the evidence before her eyes. Healing was not just about fixing broken bodies. It was about understanding broken hearts, and humans, it seemed, understood that better than any species in the galaxy. The Council of Last Hope 2 months had transformed Station Zenith from a standard veterinary facility into something unprecedented in galactic history. The main medical bays, once arranged in neat, efficient rows according to Vryn design principles, now resembled a chaotic garden of specialized environments. Temperature-controlled chambers for cold-blooded species stood beside atmospheric processors for methane breathers. Gravity wells accommodated creatures from high-mass worlds, while suspension fields cradled beings from low-gravity environments. Dr. Sarah Chen walked through the transformed station with a datapad in one hand and a warm drink in the other, reviewing the morning's patient roster. 47 successful treatments in 8 weeks, each one a case that other facilities had deemed impossible. The Korthax who had been too dangerous to approach, the Sylthan dying from loneliness, a Vexian whose aggressive behavior had masked a neurological disorder caused by improper lighting, a Throlian whose so-called species-typical violence turned out to be a severe allergic reaction to station air filtration systems. Every single patient had one thing in common. Traditional veterinary science had given up on them. Sarah had not. "Dr. Chen, you have a visitor," announced Pix, the young Quellan assistant who had become Sarah's unofficial shadow. "Dr. Kalara requests your presence in Conference Bay Alpha." Sarah set down her datapad, noting the unusual formality in Pix's tone. "Is something wrong?" "The Galactic Veterinary Council has arrived." The words hit Sarah like a physical force. The council represented the highest authority in animal medicine across dozens of worlds. Their approval could revolutionize how the galaxy treated animals. Their disapproval could shut down everything she had built here and end her career permanently. Conference Bay Alpha was the largest meeting space on the station, typically reserved for diplomatic gatherings and emergency coordination. Today it held 7 beings representing 7 different species, each one a pillar of veterinary science in their respective regions. Dr. Kalara stood at the front of the room, her antennae rigid with obvious stress. Dr. Sarah Chen announced a massive ergolite whose rocky features seemed carved from living stone. "I am Counselor Krenth. We have reviewed your work here at Station Zenith. We have concerns. Sarah took a seat at the central table, keeping her posture open and relaxed despite the tension in the room. I'm happy to address any concerns you have. Counselor. Your methods are highly unconventional, said a Sivari council member, her three eyes blinking in an unsynchronized pattern that signaled skepticism. You disregard established protocols. You place yourself in unnecessary danger. You make treatment decisions based on emotional intuition rather than scientific analysis. I make treatment decisions based on observation and experience, Sarah corrected gently. Sometimes that looks like intuition, but it's actually pattern recognition. I've worked with thousands of animals across dozens of species. You learn to read body language, to understand fear versus pain versus aggression. Your success rate is unprecedented, admitted another council member. A Phosian whose bioluminescent skin flickered with data displays. However, correlation does not imply causation. Perhaps these patients would have recovered with traditional treatment given more time. With respect, Counselor, no, they wouldn't have. Sarah pulled up holographic displays showing treatment histories. The Corthax was actively dying. Organ failure, untreatable pain, sedation ineffective. Traditional protocols called for euthanasia. Instead, I calmed him down and treated his injuries. He's fully recovered now and back with his captain. By risking your own life unnecessarily, Counselor Krenth rumbled, by taking a calculated risk based on behavioral analysis. There's a difference between bravery and recklessness. Dr. Kalara stepped forward, her mandibles clicking in a pattern Sarah had learned meant determination. Council members, I have prepared a comprehensive analysis of Dr. Chen's methods and their outcomes. With your permission, I would like to present my findings. The council members exchanged glances, then Counselor Krenth gestured assent. Kalara activated a holographic display that filled the center of the conference bay with data, charts, and recorded footage. Over the past 60 standard days, Dr. Chen has treated 47 patients that were categorized as terminal or untreatable by conventional standards. Of those 47, 45 have made full recoveries. One remains in ongoing treatment with positive prognosis. One, regrettably, died despite our best efforts, but the family reported that the animal's final days were spent in comfort rather than distress. Kalara's display shifted to show comparative data. Traditional success rates for this category of patients across the galaxy average 12%. Dr. Chen's success rate is 96%. This is not statistical noise. This is a fundamental paradigm shift in veterinary practice. A paradigm shift built on emotions and instinct, countered the Sivari council member. Such methods cannot be taught or standardized. They rely entirely on one individual's supposed talents. That's not true, Sarah interjected. I've been training the station staff, teaching them how to read body language across species, how to build trust, how to see animals as individuals rather than just medical cases. It's not mystical or unteachable. It's a skill set like any other. A skill set that places practitioners at unacceptable risk, Counselor Krenth stated. Station Zenith has recorded 16 protocol violations in the past 8 weeks alone. Protocols that would have resulted in patient deaths, Sarah replied. I understand the need for safety regulations, but sometimes rigid adherence to rules causes more harm than good. Every case is different. Every animal is an individual. Cookie-cutter approaches don't work when you're dealing with living beings who have complex emotional and psychological needs. The council members began debating among themselves in various languages. Sarah caught fragments of arguments in Vrin, Urgalite, and several other tongues she didn't recognize. The tone seemed split between those who saw opportunity and those who saw danger. Then the emergency alarms began to wail. Everyone in the conference bay turned toward the viewports as a massive colony transport ship limped into the station's docking range. Its hull showed severe damage with entire sections exposed to vacuum. Emergency beacons flashed in distress patterns that transcended language barriers. Pix rushed into the conference bay, his small body trembling with urgency. Multiple casualties. Colony ship suffered catastrophic life support failure. They evacuated the crew but could not bring all the animals. 83 creatures in critical condition. They are requesting immediate assistance. Counselor Krenth stood, his massive form filling the doorway. How many do you estimate can be saved with standard triage protocols? Perhaps 20%, Kalara calculated quickly. The rest will need to be humanely terminated to preserve medical resources for those with the highest survival probability. No. Sarah's voice cut through the room like a blade. No terminations. We save them all. That is impossible, the Sivari Council member stated flatly. Station Zenith has 12 veterinary staff members. Even working without rest, you cannot provide adequate care for 83 critical patients. Not alone we can't, Sarah agreed. But we don't have to work alone. The colonists evacuated with their animals, didn't they? Those people love these creatures. They're family members, working animals, companions. We can train them to help. Train civilians? Counselor Krenth's voice held disbelief. They have no medical knowledge, no understanding of proper procedures. They don't need medical knowledge. They need to know how to be present, how to provide comfort, how to keep their animals calm while we handle the critical medical interventions. Sarah was already moving toward the docking bay. Dr. Kalara can confirm this. Animals who feel safe heal faster. Stress hormones suppress immune function and slow tissue repair. If we can keep these creatures calm and comforted while treating them, their survival chances increase dramatically. This is madness, said the Phosian council member. You are proposing we trust untrained civilians with critical medical cases. I'm proposing we trust people to care for the beings they love, Sarah corrected. With guidance and support. Yes, it's unconventional. Yes, it breaks every protocol in your books. But so did treating the Korthax, and he's alive because I broke those rules. Dr. Kalara's mandibles clicked rapidly, her analytical mind racing through scenarios. The council is correct that this approach violates established protocols. However, Dr. Chen is also correct that standard triage will result in minimum 60% casualties. I support attempting her alternative. As do I, announced a council member who had remained silent until now. A graceful Matharian whose flowing form seemed to shimmer with inner light. I have been researching Earth's veterinary practices. Humans have a concept called patient advocacy, where family members participate actively in care. Perhaps we have been too quick to separate creature from caretaker. Counselor Krenth stood silent for a long moment, his rocky features unreadable. Finally he spoke. Very well, Dr. Chen. The council will observe your methods under crisis conditions. If you succeed, we will consider your proposals for reformed protocols. If you fail, this station will be returned to standard operating procedures and you will be removed from practice. Do you accept these terms? I accept. Sarah was already running toward the docking bay. The scene that greeted her was organized chaos. 83 creatures in various states of distress filled temporary containment fields throughout the massive bay. Some thrashed and screamed. Others lay too still, barely breathing. The sounds of animal suffering echoed off the metal walls, a symphony of pain and fear that would have overwhelmed most beings. Their families huddled nearby, 37 beings from a dozen different species, all looking lost and helpless. These were colonists who had left everything behind to start new lives on a distant world. They had brought their beloved companions and working animals, trusting that the journey would be safe. Now they watched those animals suffer and did not know how to help. Sarah climbed onto a cargo crate, making herself visible to the crowd. Her voice rang out clear and strong. Everyone listen to me. I'm Dr. Sarah Chen. We're going to save your animals, but I need your help. All of you. A human woman pushed forward, tears streaming down her face. Please, my son's pet is dying. Please help him. I will, Sarah promised. But first I need you to bring your son here. That animal needs to hear his voice, feel his touch. No medicine I have is stronger than love. The woman hesitated, then ran back toward the transport ship. Sarah turned to the rest of the crowd. Here's what you need to understand. Your animals aren't just hurt. They're terrified. They've been cold and in darkness and alone for hours thinking they were going to die. Right now they need to know they're safe. They need to know you're here. A tall insectoid colonist raised a limb, but the medical staff said to stay back, that we would interfere with treatment. I'm the medical staff now and I'm saying get close. Be there for them. Sarah pointed at Dr. Kalara. Dr. Kalara and our team will handle the critical injuries, but there are 83 patients and 12 of us. We need you to be our partners. She spent the next 15 minutes teaching them the basics. How to recognize body language across species, how to speak in calming tones, how to provide gentle physical contact, how to simply be present without hovering anxiously. The lessons were simple, stripped down to essential principles that any species could understand. Remember, Sarah concluded, you don't need to be doctors. You just need to be what every scared animal needs most, someone who cares. The colonists dispersed to their animals, hesitant at first, then with growing confidence. Sarah watched a young Kelon male approach his injured pack animal, speaking softly in his own language. The animal's ears perked up at the familiar voice. Its breathing steadied. Across the bay, an elderly Grenic female sat beside her companion creature, singing a low, rumbling song. The creature's eyes, previously wild with panic, focused on her. Its thrashing stopped. The human woman returned with her son, a boy of perhaps 6 years. The child took one look at his pet and burst into tears. He ran to the containment field, pressing his small hands against it. "Comet, I'm here. Don't die. Please don't die." The creature inside, a small furry being with large eyes and soft ears, lifted its head. Its eyes, glazed with shock just moments before, suddenly cleared. It dragged itself toward the boy's voice, toward those small hands pressed against the barrier. Sarah nodded to Pix. "Lower that field." But the child, "Lower it." The field dropped. The boy fell to his knees, wrapping his arms around his pet's neck. The creature purred and pressed close. Its body temperature began to rise. Its breathing deepened and steadied. All across the docking bay, similar scenes played out. Animals responding to familiar voices, bodies relaxing under gentle touch, fear being replaced by trust. And with that trust came something that no amount of medicine could replicate: the will to live. Sarah and Kalara moved through the chaos with their medical team, treating critical injuries, administering medication, stabilizing vital signs. But they weren't doing it alone anymore. The colonists assisted, holding their animals steady for procedures, providing comfort during painful treatments, being the anchors that kept frightened creatures from falling into shock and despair. Hours later, as station lights dimmed to simulate night cycle, Sarah collapsed onto a bench. Her clothes were covered in various bodily fluids. Her arms ached from holding animals still. Her voice was hoarse from giving instructions. But all 83 creatures were stable. All 83 were going to live. Dr. Kalara sat beside her, her usually pristine medical uniform equally ruined. That should not have worked, but it did. Yes, it did. Kalara's mandibles clicked in a pattern Sarah had learned meant wonder mixed with confusion. "I have been a veterinarian for 40 years. I have memorized every medical text, every procedure, every protocol, but today I learned something no textbook could teach me." "What's that?" "That the heart heals the body in ways we cannot measure but cannot deny." Counselor Krenth approached them, his massive form somehow seeming less intimidating than before. The other council members followed behind him, their faces showing various expressions of amazement. "Dr. Chen," Krenth said slowly, "the council has witnessed something unprecedented today. You saved 83 lives that should have been lost. More importantly, you taught us that we have been practicing medicine incompletely." "I don't understand," Sarah said. The Metherian council member floated forward, her form shimmering with gentle light. "We have focused so extensively on physical healing that we forgot about emotional healing. We have treated animals as biological machines to be repaired, rather than as living beings with complex needs. You have reminded us what we lost." "The Galactic Veterinary Council votes to establish a new division," Counselor Krenth announced formally. "It will be called Compassionate Care Protocols. Dr. Chen, you will lead this division. Dr. Kalara, you will serve as co-director. Together you will develop training programs to teach veterinarians across the galaxy how to integrate emotional care with medical treatment." Sarah looked at Kalara, who clicked her mandibles in what Sarah had learned was the Vrin equivalent of a smile. "Do you accept, Dr. Chen?" "On one condition," Sarah said. "We train not just veterinarians but also the families and caretakers. Animals shouldn't have to be sick to receive compassion. It should be woven into every interaction." "Agreed," said Counselor Krenth. 3 days later, Sarah sat in Recovery Bay 7 with Stryker, the Korthax who had started everything. The massive predator rested his head in her lap, a gesture of trust that still amazed everyone who witnessed it. Around them, the station buzzed with activity as veterinarians from across the galaxy began arriving for the first compassionate care training sessions. Sarah stroked Stryker's head gently, reflecting on how much had changed in such a short time. She had come to Station Zenith expecting to treat animals. Instead, she had ended up teaching an entire galaxy something humans had known for thousands of years. Healing was not about dominance or control or even superior knowledge. It was about connection. It was about seeing another being, truly seeing them and choosing to care. It was about whispering easy, buddy, to a frightened creature and meaning it with your whole heart. It was about understanding that sometimes the most advanced medicine in the universe could not cure what a simple act of compassion could. Ambassador Torvin entered the recovery bay, his crystalline form glowing with healthy, vibrant colors. Beside him walked Resonance, equally healthy, equally bright. They had stayed at the station to assist with Silton patients who arrived seeking treatment for the loneliness disease that had nearly claimed Resonance's life. Dr. Chen, Torvin chimed, more patients are arriving. They heard what you did here. They heard that someone finally understood. Sarah stood, giving Stryker one last pat. The Korthax grumbled contentedly and settled down on his blanket, watching her with 6 eyes full of trust and affection. Then let's go help them, Sarah said. That's what we do here. We help, we heal, we care. As she walked through Station Zenith, past the temperature-controlled rooms and atmospheric processors and gravity wells, past the colonists who had stayed to volunteer, and the veterinarians who had come to learn, Sarah thought about Earth, about the wolves who had chosen to stay with humans thousands of years ago, about the trust that had been built between species, the partnerships that had benefited everyone. Humanity had brought many things to the galaxy: technology, art, diplomatic initiatives. But perhaps their greatest gift was the simplest one: the understanding that every creature, no matter how strange or dangerous or different, deserved to be seen as someone worth saving, and sometimes, all it took was one person willing to step into the darkness, extend a hand and whisper, "Easy, buddy. I've got you now." The galaxy was learning. Slowly, one patient at a time, one whispered reassurance at a time, the galaxy was learning that healing required more than medicine. It required love,